Welcome to Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name is DJ Paris. I'm your guide and your host through the show today. On the show is our monthly series, our longest running series on Keeping It Real outside of our regular interviews that I do. This is the Monday Market Minute with Carrie McCormick from the Carrie McCormick Real Estate Group with At Properties. She has been diligently and faithfully here for, I think, 5 or 6 years every single month. And we're so grateful because she is a really very, very big producer. She's actually, I think, the biggest producer in all of Chicago, and incredible history with her business. But she is, aside from that, she's over 20 years of experience. She's a true superstar. She's does everything from first-time home buyers, veteran investors, luxury properties, and developers. She is often chosen to work with developers. I live in one of the buildings where she was the agent for that developer, so I can tell you firsthand. And she is having the very best year in her entire career this year, and unbelievable. She's over 300 million, which is just insane. So congratulations to Carrie. Welcome back to the show. Oh, before she comes on, please follow her on Instagram. This is also something that she has a lot of attention. And in fact, my brother-in-law sent me a reel, and he lives in Florida, and he has no idea who Carrie is. And he goes, I saw this really great property in Chicago. I don't know why he was looking. I didn't ask him to. Just randomly send it to me. I'm like, oh, that's my friend Carrie. And he's like, you're kidding. And then I sent it to Carrie. So she has this massive reach on Instagram. It's Carrie McCormick Real Estate. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. But like, it's amazing. My brother-in-law is watching it, which is crazy. Welcome.
Awesome.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for that incredible introduction. I always love to be here with you and, talk about the market and give tips and tricks to what we do.
Yeah. So what's going on? What is new in your world and in the sort of broker zeitgeist right now?
Yeah. So, we are headed into November. We're in Q4 of 2025. And, it's interesting. I see throughout my career that once we hit Q4 and we kind of, start gliding into the holiday market, agents take their foot off the gas, right? Because we know either people want to take their homes off the market, at least here in Chicago, because our weather starts to change. The holidays are around the corner, and we kind of let our foot off the gas. But I feel like this is a time to really push hard, to round out Q4, because I think that what you do in Q4 sets you up for 2025 or 2026. So I just have a few, tips, for pushing in the end of 2025 here for you, and then some tips, heading into 2026. So I think
Oh,
it's a good time to chat about that.
I think it's a great time. And I wanted to ask you before we do that, we have rates now are pretty low, or they're year low at least. I think the average 30 year is around 6%, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And and I know that's just kind of recently happened. Have you seen any sort of change in the number of buyers that are coming? I know it's the end of the season, and so it's kind of a goofy time for that to happen, but have you seen any change in buyer activity?
Yeah, it's here in Chicago, at least locally, it's still pretty strong. We've had limited inventory, so there's still buyers that sat on the sidelines looking for the right home. And of course, with interest rates ticking down, there's definitely a need and an aggressive push here for the right home. So absolutely, definitely affects the buyers right now. They're looking for the right thing. And then, of course, we still have the cash buyers in the market, which they're looking for year-end deals.
I think too, this is a great time to reach out to anybody that bought a home during the pandemic and or even pre-pandemic, because their values have probably gone up
Yeah.
and rates are now not so awful where you were like, I don't want to give up my 3%, which I am in the process of doing. And I'm, I don't want to give that up either, but 6% is not that bad, or at least I'm comfortable with that. And you get a little bit of a discount maybe even right now. So this is a great opportunity to call sellers and just say, hey, let's reappraise your place. What's it worth? How much have you made? And do you want to move? Right. I think now is the time to have that conversation before the spring market, maybe. And then, if these rates stay where they are, we're going to have a very, very busy spring market. So
Agree. So here's some pushes that I would recommend for the end of this year. The first and foremost is I'm going to take my own advice on this one is re-engage with your database. right? We've got a plethora of clients, like you just mentioned, whether it was during the pandemic or even this year, last year. It's a great time to re-engage with your database, and especially during the holidays, right? Because again, a lot of agents take their foot off the gas. They try to coast towards the end of the year. This is the time that you push on the gas and you do a lot of marketing, especially to your current database. Really, you do personal check-ins. Handwritten cards, of course, is always a nice touch. Year-end market updates talk about how the market performed in 2025, what the expectations are in 2026. Again, this is a great time just for informational purposes to reach out to your clients. Also, I did this past weekend, is an audit of your current listings and your pipeline. Take a look at what your listings are right now. If they're not moving, if they haven't moved in 30 or 60 days, depending on where your market is, identify what needs to be repositioned, right? So something needs to change if it's not selling. Is it pricing? Is it marketing? Does the property need to be staged? Take a look at the feedback that you've received from all of your showings and go back to the seller and do a quick recap with them and say, okay, we haven't sold. This is my suggestions. Don't always lead with price, because a seller always thinks, what are you doing for me versus you want me to reduce my price. So, I always do it as a team effort. Why don't we do a price reduction to X? And when we do that, I am going to double down on marketing, and this is what I am going to do. So you approach it as a team effort, not just asking for a price reduction, but this is what I'm going to do as well. So again, reposition, reevaluate your current listings. I think that is important. And then, since again, we're headed towards the holidays, it's time to amplify your holiday marketing, right? So, again, emotion during the holidays is high, good or bad, it's high. So, this is the time you want to step in and talk about, the holidays and what you're thankful for, etc. Holiday content always performs exceptionally well. It's very visual, whether you're in a winter market like I am, and just talking about fireplaces and cozy corners and, different things like that really can drive the emotion behind what's important in a home.
Yeah, I love all that. I wanted to ask you, this is just a totally apropos of nothing question, but I'm curious how you handle this. I've noticed that in the last several years, we have wallpaper has come back, right? Wallpaper is very prominent. And I have this feeling that people have very specific feeling about wallpaper, and really bold wallpaper is in right now, really cool and very prominently sort of bright colors or interesting colors and patterns, and it's cool. I like it. I
Mhm.
also know that like if I see a place that I'm trying to buy and I see wallpaper, I'm like, oh, now I have to deal with that. Now again, it's a solvable problem, but what do you typically recommend to a seller who's got like a really unique wallpaper, which they think
Mhm.
is cool and maybe it is cool, but does that get in the way of a showing or just even being seen online?
Yeah, it really does depend on the wallpaper, because there's some gorgeous, bold, wallpapers and etc. But again, it really depends on the wallpaper. But I typically, especially if it's in a powder room, will leave it because it's such a small
It kind of
space.
works. Yeah. Yeah.
It kind of works, and it doesn't, it's not the main part of the home. If the wallpaper covers, I always think, like, where do you spend 90% of your time? Your kitchen, your living room, your family room, those main areas, or your master bedroom, primary bedroom, sorry. um, like those main spaces, really the new buyer needs to visualize them
Yeah.
living there, and wallpaper can really distract from that. And as painful as it is to tell someone to remove their wallpaper, I always say, it's going to sell quicker, it's going to sell for more money. You got to neutralize it, and I leave it up to the client. Another tool is to virtually stage the room, meaning
Yeah.
if you take the picture with, the hot pink wallpaper with, birds all over it, you can virtually
Yeah.
remove the wallpaper so you can show someone a visual of what that looks like.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, do that. I would think because you just don't want people have weird, sort of psychologically dissatisfying reaction to wallpaper they don't like, and all of a sudden now they think negatively, and yes, they can fix it, and but yeah, I agree. I think I've seen really beautiful places with wallpaper where I go, I would have to remove that, and now I'm now thinking about stuff I don't really want to do, and maybe there's something else that doesn't have that. And it's the same reason why I used white linens, which I have white linens just coincidentally for my bedspread and my pillows. It's because I
Right.
Zillow told me that if you use white bedspreads, people click on it more. I was like, if I had a blue one, I would have tossed it out and got a white one just for the photos. So
Yeah.
I will always say just do whatever gets more make it easy for people to say yes to come see your
Yeah.
place. But now with chat gpt and you can probably just make it white anyway, like you were saying, probably just
Right.
turn change the color of it anyway without actually changing the color.
Yeah, it
Well,
is.
I think those are great suggestions. And Carrie, this is so you're optimistic for next year as well? You feel like it's going to be a good year?
I really am. Our market, again, I know a market is very local, but the market here in Chicago for this year has been very strong. Limited inventory, buyer sentiment is positive. So I really feel like 2026 is going to be a great year here. But there are, things that we as brokers need to do to plan ahead for next year. And I'm just going to give you a few tips on that.
Great.
So, one is to create a data driven business plan. And what that means is using predictive analytics to identify um, kind of your marketing, who your buyers are, who your sellers are going to be. Really look at your KPIs, and which is key performance indicators. I don't know if people know what that is. Listing volume, your GCI, your referral rates, your marketing ROI. So really kind of drill down on your marketing, or I'm sorry, on your business plan, and have key indicators so you can measure it along in 2026. I still have a hard time saying that. The other thing I think is going to be important for brokers is to double down on your personal brand and your SEO. Make sure that you really look at your Google business page, your YouTube, Chat GPT, do your own search of your name and see how you rank. All of that's going to be important, for your bios, your keywords. So just do like an audit across all online platforms to see how you are ranking and to see how you are tracking, because that's what buyers and sellers are doing. So you need to do that yourself and make sure everything is cohesive. So again, double it down on your personal brand. Also, pay attention to your visuals that you have online. Buyers are consuming information visually first, of course, right? They're online, they're looking at everything. So, from photography to videography to whatever type of marketing that you're doing, make sure that you take it up a notch, right? So, again, whatever you're working on, take a look at it, audit it, make sure that everything is perfect, because again, buyers are not talking to you first. They're online and they're making a decision online whether or not they're going to work with you or whether they're going to come see that property. They are making a decision in their mind already.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So having brand colors, having a brand sort of style guide. And by the way, if you don't have one, you can hire somebody to create this with you. There are
Yeah.
branding specialists, and you don't have to spend thousands and thousands necessarily. There are places where people all over the world can do this, but certainly local people can as well. And I think that when you have that, now all of a sudden you have, as a marketer, that's what I am. I love having style guides, and I like having colors, and that way it just makes all the future decisions a little bit easier, because you
Right.
don't have to really worry about, oh, what's my base color again? Oh, it's this particular hex code blue. Oh, I already know that. So now I can just kind of color that everywhere or use it as the backdrop. And you are really, your Instagram is really evident of you have a very particular aesthetic, and
Mhm.
it's very intentional, it's very professional. You really put a lot of energy and cost and time into it, and there's bears fruit. Like my brother-in-law finding you out of nowhere, and it wasn't because he and I are connected that it sent him this. He was found in a totally different social network where he and I aren't even connected. So that's the reach of social media, and I think you're right. So yeah, lots of video this year. Remember, everyone's watching TikTok. They're
Mhm.
not even, maybe we're not even watching Instagram as much anymore. I think everyone's going to TikTok, or at least the younger people are. And boy, if you can be on there and have some videos hit, you'll do well.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
it's
go.
also keeping up with everything. Like you mentioned with Instagram or, whatever online platform is your strength is,
Yeah.
Also don't get too comfortable with it.
Right.
It's everything's changing so quickly, and you have to pay attention to the consumer as well, and do an ROI audit on your social. So I think, just to kind of wrap up, I think Q4 isn't about just closing out the year. It's about setting the rhythm for 2026, right? For the
Yeah.
next year. And I think that for agents who, um, are very consistent with their marketing, they're consistent with their follow through, they understand the systems that are out there, and they're consistently evolving. I think, you are going to accelerate in 2026. So just don't glide out this rest of the year. Step on the gas, plan for 2026, and make sure it's the best year.
And odds are you have more time right now to do that. So don't do the thing that most agents do, which is they take their foot off and they breathe a little bit more. Do
Mhm.
that a little bit and work a little bit harder, and you'll be great. You'll be set up for the spring market. All right. Well, we appreciate Carrie. Great episode. As always, we are so grateful to you. And on behalf of the audience, thank you. On behalf of Carrie and myself, thank you to our audience for sticking around. This is our biggest year ever on the show as well. And the reason for that is that you tell a friend that our audience does that. And we ask you to do that for us as well. Continuing on, that really would help us get in front of more and more realtors who need to hear what Carrie has said, and all of our other wonderful guests. And also support our sponsors are the reason we can keep doing these episodes. So with that being said, leave us a review, by the way, too. Like asking your clients to leave reviews on Google Business and Zillow. Do that for us on whatever podcast app you might be, or podcast system you might be listening to us on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. Let us know what you think of the show. It helps us get in front of more people
Oh, I have
too.
one more plug. I should have plugged this at the beginning. Totally forgot. Open House Chicago on NBC, Sunday mornings, 8:30 a.m.
That's
See you soon.
right. You're on TV now. I forgot. Open House Chicago's. Yeah. We'll have a link to that in the show notes so you guys
Awesome.
can check that out. All
Yeah.
right, Carrie, we will see everybody on the next episode. Thanks.
Thanks.